Cherokee, North Carolina, October 4, 1968. Representatives of 4 American Indian tribes, meeting in the ancient Cherokee Appalachian homeland, became a people of one fire with the organization of the United Southeastern Tribes. That organization has grown to represent 15 tribes, one for each year it has been in existence. This is the story of USET, its beginnings, its goals, and its meaning to the people it represents.
Hi, I'm Rex Evans. I'm the Executive Director of the United South and Eastern Tribes, and I'd like to share in the next few minutes with you in stories and pictures and words just what is the United South and Eastern Tribes, its past, its present, and its future, and how great an impact it has had and will have on reservation life in the eastern United States.
We were in Washington for some reason. I did not know at the particular time. My brother and myself went there because we were called we should be there representing our people.
So the CAP directors originally got together and wanted to work together and see how they can promote the OEO program as well as how they could continue it and work in the political sector. But we found out right away that it would be a lot better if we could get the tribal chiefs to organize and work together as a group and work on common cause. And that's how we originally started. We started talking around 1966.
When we organized, we would get a strength and become a strong people that we could help each other. When there is only one, we don't seem to get anywhere with government people.
Of course, you know that the organization didn't formally, document wasn't formally signed until October 1968, but during that 2-year time, we worked hard in trying to get organized and trying to find resources, how we could operate, and also get the tribal chiefs interested in organizing.
And I think it's not easy during that time because none of us have much money to travel, particularly Seminole tribes and do not have any funds. We don't have, Mvskoke do not have any funds. Choctaw people don't have any funds. I don't believe Cherokee's but off either. So we have a hard time to travel back and forth, trying to organize ourselves. But for some reason, we have feelings we need to be together.
After we ask our own people and have a meeting with our tribe and they agree, we decided we'll start. So we become organized, the 4. We call ourselves the Big 4 when we first started it. There was Choctaw, Seminoles, and Mvskoke and Cherokee. And it was on cool October night during a festival when we passed a peace pipe among each other. So then, and some of the other guys had brought it in, and so that's why it passed among the 4.
Walter Jackson was the chief of the Cherokees. Emmett York was the chairman of the Mississippi Band, Choctaw Indians. Betty Mae Jumper was the chairperson of the Seminole tribe, and Buffalo Tiger was the Mvskoke chairman, which he still is today. But those were the original 4 signers, and we started off with only 4 tribes.
We have people that was really interesting in pushing us, and Savannah Bigwitz was one of them that really pushed.
He was the Cherokee CAP director, assisted by Johnson Owl. Horace Grab from Seminoles, Wanders John, also from Seminole, and myself worked to see that we did organize. And that's when, after many months of hard work and frustration and a lot of fun too in organizing, we finally got it set up.
500 years ago, eastern North America was composed of highly organized chiefdoms, with commerce from the Gulf of Mexico to and beyond the tribes of the St. Lawrence waterway. Too soon, they would fall victim to conquest. At first, the European wanted treasure, then a little land, then all of the land. In 1763, he arranged for Indians to live west of the Appalachian Mountains. That arrangement didn't last a decade. By 1850, most of the eastern tribes had been forced beyond the Mississippi. Tribal remnants today are scattered and few. In South Florida, Mvskoke and Seminole. In the Great Smokies, the Cherokee. Northward, the Pequot, the Maliseet, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, and Narragansett. In New York State, the St. Regis Mohawk and the Seneca. In Louisiana, Tunica, Biloxi, Coshada, Chitimacha. In Mississippi, the Choctaws. In Alabama, the Creeks. Together, the tribes of USET. At that very first meeting in Cherokee, USET delegates formulated objectives and published them in a Declaration of Unity. To promote Indian leadership in order to move toward the ultimate desirable goal of complete Indian involvement and increasing responsibility at all levels in Indian affairs. To lift the bitter yoke of poverty from our peoples through cooperative efforts. To promote better understanding between Indians and other Americans. To negotiate for more effective use of existing local, state, and federal resources. To provide a forum for exchange of ideas. To combine our four voices so our one strong voice can be heard clearly. To dedicate ourselves to improvement of health. To obtain for ourselves and our descendants the highest level of education.
Since the four tribes started, we've had several others that joined, and many of them are new tribes, and they're struggling now to develop some things that the tribe could benefit from. But we have tribes like the Seneca Nation, the St. Regis Mohawk. They've been in business a long time. The Old Town Maine, Penobscot, Passamaquoddies, they've been going, in place a long time. But I think with the involvement in USET, they have also climbed up the ladder of progress. And I think that's what it was for in the first place, working together to make things better for people on the reservation.
The Seneca tribe was first approached by representatives from USET back in the late 60s, 1968 or 69, when a couple of representatives traveled to New York State to talk to us. At the time, I was on the tribal council. And the basic thrust at the time was to involve more tribes and going on a principle of greater strength in numbers.
Well, when I first came on the board as tribal leader, we had some correspondence in the mail from, I think it was the Seneca Nation. And our first attempt was just kind of a visiting thing. They had a meeting in Florida and at the Seminole tribe down there. And we just kind of went to observe and see what was going on. And from that point on, the relationship grew, and now we feel that it's really a fantastic group of people. You got Indians from all of the East, and we have the participants are progressive and some who aren't. It doesn't make any difference. At least we have a group that can agree in principle, and even if we don't agree, we agree to disagree and leave things lay so it doesn't hurt anyone. It don't hurt one another.
Right now, I'm not even too familiar with this. I'm just learning as I go along. So, say before I had this job, I was a regular basket maker for about 30 some odd years. And from a basket maker to Indian politics, well, it's quite obvious to me to be a chairman, which, like I say, I'm learning as I go along. And everything what I pick up right now, it seems to be new to me.
One thing particular I like about USET, like coming here now, is that you can join the different tribal members here, or tribal leaders, and exchange ideas on what's happening at the home front. Could be Indian Health Service, could be economic development. It seems like all the different leaders are here, and you have the opportunity to exchange.
We try to work together, and then we go see the right people. We go to our congressional representative and see to get their support. And you have to continuously work to develop those contacts and maintain those contacts and come up with good plans. You just don't go up there with an idea without any research or a plan to go with it. If you got something that you can sell, then chances are good that you're going to get support.
It's a pleasure to have in the audience the Honorable United States Senator John Stennis. If you're a fan, take a bow. Thank you for being here, Senator. Thank you.
Every single reservation in America should qualify for the compensatory type tax efforts and incentives that would allow for men and women to start a small business on a reservation, and that the reservation's enterprise zone would require that a large percentage, the majority percentage of those jobs should not go outside the reservation, but should go to those young men and those young women who qualify by being members of that family or that nation or that reservation. Secondly, I mentioned access to capital. We know from histories, we know from our own country's development, we know from the Industrial Revolution, the only real and lasting way to increase the prosperity of a nation is to increase the amount of capital invested per worker, per capita. The more investment per capita, the higher the output. The higher the output, the greater the wage. The greater the wage, the greater the opportunity for that family to stick together, for that man or that woman to have an opportunity to feed their children, to give them the sense of destiny or hope that goes along with being an American, or should go along with being an American. And the fact that we haven't done it is not a symptom of our failure. It is a symptom of the neglect that has happened, and it cannot continue. And I'm convinced that one thing that we ought to do to amend that bill, Lionel, and I'd like maybe it to be discussed later, and I would be happy to work with you and your tribal leaders on this. I would suggest that one thing that maybe can even be developed in the tax conference. Why not allow, in order for a small business man or woman, minority entrepreneur, for instance, on an Indian reservation, in order to raise capital for that business idea that first formulates in one's mind, why not allow for the debenture or the stock that is sold to finance that company to be written off at least by 50% by an individual who would have the opportunity to buy that stock or buy that debenture in that small business, and allow him or her to write off 50% against his or her taxes.
Your assistance in trying to identify those programs that are absolutely needed and funding levels that are absolutely necessary will be very helpful to those of us on the Appropriations Committee who have to make these decisions. We're not going to be able to fund every program at the maximum level that is being requested, there's just not going to be that much money available to go around, or if we do, we're going to pay the price later on in a stagnant economy and one where we run the risk of serious economic crisis. So I'm hoping that we can work together and try to make those decisions correctly and identify those programs that are important and need the funding. Well, let me thank you again for inviting me to be with you today. I congratulate you on convening this conference and looking for ways to improve economic opportunity and well-being of those you represent. I hope you have a very successful conference and enjoy your visit here in Mississippi's capital city. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for our tribes, for our leaders, for the many years of hard work.
Presently, USET is a very strong political force in Indian world. It has had the opportunity to impact a lot of issues that affect the daily lives of people on the reservation. I feel very proud to be a small part of that. I think the leadership we have and the efforts that they make to impact Congress and the administration has borne fruit in the fact that in many instances we were able to change laws and regulations that had an adverse impact on the reservation and the lifestyles of Indian people on the reservation. And I think the strength and unity shown by the United South and Eastern Tribes, the Intertribal Council, will grow and become stronger as we get more involved, actively involved in the greater society and the political system of this United States. I know many of you are unaware that there are reservations in the eastern United States, and I'd like to invite you to, as you travel around the East, to spend some time on the reservations. I think you'll find the people open and friendly and willing to share their history and culture and their day-to-day activities with you.
Tonight I will introduce to you some of the leaders from these tribes. From the St. Regis Mohawks up in New York State, Chief of St. Regis Mohawks, Leonard Garrow. From the Seneca Nation, President Lionel John. Atmore, Alabama, the Porch Band of Streaks, Chairman Eddie Tullis. Thank you very much.
Good to see you, gentlemen and ladies. It's so cold today. I remember in July this year, it was so hot. We went through some peace ceremony. It was so hot at the time, but it's freezing cold now. But I'm glad your friends come from Dade County and other areas getting together today and see a Mvskoke Museum in Everglades open today. Indian people are really close nature people. So that's what we're going to show you here in the museum after our speech finished. But the reason we had a museum, we thought our young people, even though Mvskoke youngsters don't know too much about how beautiful nature is. So we wanted to have a museum so they can come and study and learn little more. So sure, we like to share this idea with you. I don't care if you're Spanish or Germany or whoever. You just come back and then walk through the museum
and learn something how we really feel about nature.
And at this time, we are going to get ready to cut the ribbon.
She created the design herself. It took her approximately 6 weeks to complete. The eagle feather in the crown is a gift for ironized coating.
وتعالك شاهد إتي ون نجا
The cultural heritage of the United South and Eastern Tribes is a rich treasure, which they share with others in museums, heritage centers, and powwows. Not all activities are deeply rooted in Indian culture, but they are popular with the public, and they generate income vital to the reservation life. The Indian reservations of the South and the East are picturesque places, and visitors are welcome. But for some reason, most Americans don't know where they're located. USET has plans to change all of this.
One of the things we're very proud of is the fact that the Eastern tribes have decided to use off-reservation developments to return resources back to the reservation, and in doing so have developed a very unique program in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the headquarters of the United South and Eastern Tribes, and that is the Calumet Center. What you're going to see in the next minute or two is the news clip from when we had our ground blessing back in November of 1983, and in the future you'll be very impressed with what the tribes have done and how this is going to impact reservation life by providing those resources back to the reservation from off-reservation, private sector developed projects.
Finally tonight, the Indians reclaimed some Middle Tennessee land today to break ground for what may become a major tourist attraction east of Nashville. Cherokee medicine man Iron Eyes Cody blessed the ground that will be used for an Indian cultural center as the chiefs of 12 tribes looked on. The $5 million project will be built by the United South and Eastern Tribes, which are headquartered here in Nashville.
The reason that Nashville was picked for this center is because it's in a centralized location for the 12 South and Eastern Tribes. And they say this spot on Percy Priest Lake is ideal since it's wooded and will add a sense of authenticity to the Indian villages to be built here.
We don't want it to be a curiosity piece. We want it to be something that's really nice, that really shows how people the Indian people lived years ago, and it's not going to be something that we're looking for in terms of commercialism. We want it to be more a museum, where when you walk out through there, you feel like you were actually there.
The 10-acre center will be home base for the 12 tribes. Indian leaders say this center is an important statement of unity between the various tribes and will help keep alive their culture and heritage. The complex should be complete sometime in 1985. Jessica Etz, Channel 2 News.
Cherokee, North Carolina to Nashville, Tennessee. 15 years of growth for the United South and Eastern Tribes. Ever changing, ever growing, ever looking to the future.
We need to be a constant changing organization to fit the need of its membership. That need today is a need for resource sharing, information sharing, and we have not forgotten the founding principles of the organization. That's strength and unity, and I think that those principles are as good today as they were back in 1968 when those far-sighted tribal leaders started the organization.
I hope I'll be here the next 15 years. Well, I'm sure that progress will, once the wheel is rolling, snowball, so to speak, and, you know, it should pick up and even get better and bigger.